everyone, my name is Mary Ellen, and welcome back to my little slice of the internet where we talk about all things related to the storytelling industry. If you don't already know me, I write nonfiction under my real name, Mary Ellen Quigley, and romance under my pen name, M.E. Laverne. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about one of my favorite productivity boosts, the writing retreat. Have you ever thought to yourself, I really wish I could just get away from all of this stuff, sit down someplace quiet, and just write with no distractions? I have also been there, and I think so many of us have. And one of the big things I have learned to help me boost my productivity is to do writing retreats. Now, here's the thing, when I say writing retreat, you probably have a very clear picture in your head of what that looks like because writing retreats are an actual thing. You can go online, search for ones. They're usually in really idyllic locations, and all these writers from all around the world and the country come together, and they have workshops and learning opportunities and get togethers where you can share your work with others and get feedback and beta read. And they have excursions where you take breaks throughout the day and you go do sightseeing together. And they sound magical. They also sound very expensive. And I just don't have the money for stuff stuff like that. I would love to save up because there are definitely some writing retreats out there that I have been eyeballing that I would love to go on, but realistically, I don't have thousands and thousands of dollars to spend on travel, the cost of the retreat, food, all the things. And at the end of the day, when I'm looking at the list of things you have to do, I'm thinking, would I actually get enough writing done that it would be worthwhile paying all of this money? So one of the things that my sister and I have learned to do is to create our own writing retreats. So I thought I would go through some of the things we learned about how to create your very own writing retreat on a budget. So why does a writing retreat even matter? Like, why is this the thing that you should even consider? Well, it's not about the aesthetics. I feel like when you look at them online, people are trying to be like, oh, look at the cozy cabin in the woods with the creek running by. Like, and it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. But that's not the goal of a writing retreat. A writing retreat is a way for you to get away from your everyday distractions and allow your creativity to recharge. Because let's be real, sometimes when you're dealing with work and children and family and whatever else you have in your life that's going to distract you, it is sometimes hard to carve out time. Even though last week I talked about putting time on the calendar, it never fails that while you're sitting down for your 2 hours of writing, the phone rings. Or one of your family members sends you like 10 text messages and you're like, I should probably answer that because they're blowing up my phone. That's just the reality of it. And if you have kids, forget it. They're not going to need anything all day until mama sits down to write. All right, all you moms out there, I'm not a mother, but I've seen this happen to my sister. They don't need a thing until mom sits down to write, and suddenly everybody needs your time. And so a writing retreat is a way for you to just get away from all of it and just focus. This is a really good productivity boost if you have deadlines you need to meet. In fact, my sister and I did a writing retreat a couple of times when we were working on our book that we had published with the History Press because we had deadlines that we had to meet per our contract with the publisher, and you couldn't be late. You had to have things due. So we planned in a couple of writing retreats, and on those weekends, we were able to knock out huge chunks of the book, and we were able to do that because we did writing retreats. So let's talk about how to do this on a budget because we don't have thousands of dollars, but we know that we need the productivity boost. So let's talk about how to do it, keeping the cost down. So the first one is a writing retreat away from home. This is the most popular option because it's also the easiest way to go distraction free, especially if you have a family. So here are 4 affordable options for you to consider when it comes to booking a stay away from home. The first one is look for an Airbnb or a hotel off season or midweek. And as someone who is in the hotel industry, I will tell you that the best way to get a good price on a hotel or an Airbnb is to include a Sunday night or Thursday night in your stay because most markets, Sundays and Thursdays, are low occupancy nights and also the cheapest nights with the biggest discounts available. So if you can, for example, do a stay in, like, I don't know, downtown Chicago or something like that. If you book a Sunday, Monday night stay, you're going to get a much better rate than if you booked a Friday or Saturday because Fridays and Saturdays are going to be high leisure times, and Tuesday, Wednesday are high corporate travel times. So the rates are going to be high and the hotels are going to be close to sellout. But that Sunday, Monday, and Thursday are not. One tip for booking hotel rooms is to consider when it comes to Airbnbs doing a small cabin, a mother in law suite. Sometimes you can also do apartments. There are Airbnbs that are like small apartments. Those are going to be much cheaper than if you're booking like the big beach house or whatever, because depending on what you're looking for, you don't necessarily want something fancy and you don't want something expensive. You just want something quiet that's going to be relaxing. So that's something to consider. And then when I am booking hotel rooms with my sister, a lot of it depends on how many people are going with you, which we'll touch upon more later in this episode. But depending on how many people are coming with you, you may want a larger room. So, for example, if I'm doing a writing retreat with my sister, I usually try to book a hotel room that has a suite element to it. So, depending on what brand you're getting, that could be like a home two if you're booking with Hilton, that can be a Town Place Suites or a Spring Hill Suites if you're booking with the Marriott. And there's lots of other versions of this out there depending on the hotel brand you're going with. But the reason I do that is because most standard hotel rooms have the beds and then they have one desk. But if you have two people in the room writing, you don't want only one desk because you're both going to want space to write. And sometimes sitting on the hotel bed is not the most comfortable thing in the world. So if we are both going on a writing weekend, I will get a suite room that has a living room area as well as the desk area so that we both have space to work. But another tip for this is that if you do have a hotel that has the little kitchenette or suite setup, it also saves you money on food because instead of having to go out to eat every meal, you can actually just bring snacks or quick lunches to put in your refrigerator, like your kitchenette area. And then you're not having to spend a bunch of money eating out. So it does keep the cost down. So just a little side tip if you're booking like a hotel room, Airbnbs usually come with a kitchen because you're renting somebody's house, but if you're staying in a hotel, just a couple small side tips to help you keep the cost down. All right, the second affordable option, since I spent so much time on hotels and Airbnbs, is ask your friends and family. Do you have any friends or family that have timeshares, vacation homes? Are they going to be out of town for the weekend? Do you want to go house sit for them? I mean, it sounds really weird, but I do have friends that have vacation homes down in Florida. I have a friend who has a cabin down in Tennessee. Depending on how close you are to that friend, you'd be like, hey, I have a book due. I really want to knock it out. Can I just go stay in your cabin for a few nights? And if they're a good friend, they'll probably let you. So don't be afraid to ask friends. Obviously, make sure you're like good friends because you're not going to randomly walk up to an acquaintance and be like, can I stay in your house? Because that's creepy. But definitely don't be afraid to ask your friends if they do have spaces. Or, like I said, if you have the friend that's going on a vacation and be like, hey, I'll house sit for you because that's a free writing retreat and you don't even have to really leave your area. All right, the third one is the one I referenced earlier, and that is going on a retreat with friends. Now, be very careful who you choose to go on your retreat with because you want to have somebody that you're going to work well with. You don't want this to turn into like a we're just going to chat, eat snacks, and drink all weekend kind of thing. You want this to be someone that you can actually work with. So make sure that if you're going with a friend that they understand this is a working weekend. So usually I try to also find people that are writers, which is why I go with my sister. As you guys know, we co-write together, we work on the podcast together. So we will do these working writing retreat weekends where we're actually working together. But what's good about inviting friends, especially if you do have writer friends, is that you can split the cost, especially if you're doing an Airbnb, right? So if you're renting an Airbnb, it's going to be much cheaper to split the cost of that with two, three, four other people than it would be for you to pay for it yourself. Even a hotel room, let's say you and your best friend want to go on a writing retreat. Well, you're splitting the cost of that room in half. So that's going to save some money for you and also make it a little bit more fun because you're not completely by yourself, but yet you're still having the ability to work without major distractions. And my last tip would be don't forget about local spots. I know that the whole appeal of a writer's retreat is to get away from the norm and to do something new and inspiring all that, and I get it, but sometimes you just can't. You can't afford it, you don't have the time for it, whatever the case may be. Don't be afraid to book a night or even two nights at a local hotel, motel, Airbnb, whatever you got to do just to get away from it. One example of this would be that I had a friend that just finished her doctorate degree, and she had to do some kind of big final project for her degree, and she needed to just get away from home. She has three small children, and so she talked to her husband. They picked a weekend, and she booked just an Airbnb because we live near Lake Michigan. So she ended up getting an Airbnb on Lake Michigan. She was 20 minutes from her house the entire weekend. But she was sitting out on a patio, looking at the beach, looking at the beautiful water, finishing up her project. And because she did that, she was able to knock it out and finish it in that weekend. And sometimes that's all you need. So don't be afraid to just stay local if that's what you can afford, because sometimes it's not the fancy that you need, it's just the quiet. Here are some general tips for those who are planning a retreat away from home, just some things that you should consider before you go. The first one would be the most logical one is to set a budget for yourself, just so you know how much money you have to spend and to plan that trip 4 to 6 weeks ahead of time, especially if you're booking an Airbnb or you're booking a hotel room. A lot of times, that last minute booking is going to be more expensive than if you booked it 4 to 6 weeks ahead of time. So just have a good budget in mind, have a good plan in place, and make sure you're booked and ready to go so that there are no last minute surprises when you get there. The second thing would be to create a writing retreat schedule for yourself. And so that means having what times you're going to take breaks, what times you're going to be writing, maybe have how many like pomodoros you want to do in the day, and make sure that you also plan fun things to do. So, for example, if you're staying at a hotel or an Airbnb that has a pool, it might be that I'm going to take a break at this time to go swimming in the pool for an hour or to go sit in the hot tub for an hour. Or maybe you're going to like go out to dinner and go look at the local bookstore or something. Plan some breaks in there because although you want this to be a productive weekend where you're really sitting down and focusing on writing, you also want to have fun, right? Especially if you're doing a writing retreat with a friend or a couple of friends, you want to have fun. So make sure that you plan some breaks or some inspiration time. One example of this would be that when I was finishing up one of my vampire novels back in the day, my sister and I did a writing retreat in downtown Chicago because my vampire novel takes place in downtown Chicago. So it was very inspiring to sit and look out at the streets of Chicago while I was writing my book about vampires that lived in Chicago. And one of the inspiration breaks we took is we went out to dinner and we just walked up and down like the Mag Mile and we're looking at the stores and all of the high rise buildings. And it was amazing just to be able to see the city firsthand, take it in, and then take all of that back to my laptop where I then transferred that knowledge into the book that I was writing about the vampires living in Chicago. So that is a good example of how you can do an inspiration break where you're getting out, you're eating dinner, you're seeing the sights around you, just taking a little relaxation time so that you are ready to go for your next round of writing and it can help you write better scenes. So, what if you don't have the money to book a vacation away from home and to work on writing? Well, you can do a writing retreat at home. It's obviously a little bit more difficult, but it can be done. And so, let's talk about ways in which you can create your own writing retreat at home. So, first and foremost, how you set this up really depends on your living situation. Do you live alone? Do you have a spouse? Do you have kids? Do you have roommates? There's a lot of things that are going to determine what this looks like. So, a lot of the terms and the suggestions I'm going to use are very broad, but you're going to have to try to figure out for your own lifestyle what that's going to look like for you. So, the very first one would be obviously to first and foremost set off a day, a weekend, whatever it is that you are going to have set aside just for this writing retreat, writing weekend, writing whatever you want to call it, your writing day. Okay. And that means clearing your calendar. Maybe that's a day off of work that you purposely take off of work. Maybe that's an actual just regular, like maybe you're off on weekends, so you're going to do it on a Saturday. Find a day where you can clear your calendar. If that means no work, no chores, no errands, no social activities, nothing. There's nothing on your calendar. This is just the day that you're using for writing, and everything else that comes up is not able to be done because that is your writing day. You're also going to communicate, number two, communicate boundaries with the people in your life. So maybe that is, maybe you live alone and that's just communicating to family that I'm unavailable because I'm working on a project. And so my phone's going to be turned off and I don't want any visitors that day and I'm unavailable. Maybe that is letting your spouse know. Maybe if you're married and you don't have kids, you just have your spouse. Maybe it's letting your spouse or your roommates, if you're in that situation, letting them know that I'm going to be holed up in my room for this weekend. I'm not going to be coming out to socialize with you guys because I'm spending the day in my bedroom, office, whatever, writing. So don't be upset. I'm just working on a project today, and letting them know you're unavailable. If you have children, depending if you have a spouse or if you're a single parent, that could mean sending the kids to grandma's for the weekend. That could be them doing a sleepover at a friend's house. That could be them going to stay with an aunt, whatever it is. Or it could just be telling your husband that, hey, entertain the kids today because I'm working on my writing project, right? I mean, however you figure that out depends on your family and the way your family works. But essentially, you're just creating a boundary between everything else and your writing space. And once you figure out what that looks like, you can then determine where you're going to write. So number 3 would be set the scene. That could be that you're going to write in your bedroom, you're going to write in your office, you're going to pick a corner of the living room, you're going to go write on the patio. The trick is to set up a dedicated writing space for yourself. So you want to have a place where you can write, maybe a comfy chair for you to sit and brainstorm, right? Some good lighting, maybe a couple smelly candles, some good tea or coffee or wine or whatever you want to drink, some nice cold beverages, some snacks. Just set up a nice little area of your house so that you have quiet place to work where you're not going to be distracted. If you do have a situation where you have a spouse, roommates, kids, or other people that are in the house that could possibly distract you, it's old school, but get a piece of paper, put do not disturb, shut your door, and put up a do not disturb sign and let everybody in the house know that I am not to be disturbed unless the sign is taken off the door. That's the best way to do it. It's again, it's not ideal, but it can be done. But the trick is to communicate and make sure you have a plan in place before you start writing so that you're not caught off guard. Now, the fourth one is actually way more important than you think it is, and that is to create a schedule for yourself with clear goals that you want to achieve. The reason I say this, and you should do that for any writing retreat, but especially if you're working from home, because it is going to be so much easier to be distracted at home because you have the comforts of home. You've got your family, you've got your kids, you've got things you need to be done. You got laundry to do. You know, you've got to go run errands. You need to go grocery shopping. Like I get it. You're going to have things that you need to do, and it's going to be even more easier to be like, I'm stuck on this scene. I don't know what to do. I'm going to go put a load of laundry in, and then suddenly you've lost 2 hours doing chores and errands at home, and you're like, crap, I should have just sat down and wrote. Make sure that you do have an actual schedule, and it could be a simple one. It could be like, I'm going to take the dog for a morning walk, and then I want to do 3 Pomodoros of 30 minutes, and then I'm going to take a break, and then I'm going to read a book for inspiration, and then I'm going to eat lunch, and then I'm going to do 3 more Pomodoros, whatever it is. Just have a basic idea. Or it could even be like, I want to get 3 chapters written by lunchtime or whatever. Whatever it looks like, just make sure you have a plan in place because it will be so easy for you to go off plan and then not get anything done. And a really good last tip for you guys is to plan your meals ahead of time. That could mean treating yourself to takeout for some meals, maybe door dashing some food to your house. Or it could be that you just prep your meals ahead of time. So maybe you're just prepping the meal prep containers and you just heat up your meals when you're hungry. Or it could mean throwing something in the crock pot so that at the end of the day, you can go dish it out of the crock pot and you're good to go. Whatever it is, again, the goal is not to get stuck, and that's so easy to do at home. You could just all of a sudden 2 hours were spent in the kitchen. Plan ahead of time so that you're not wasting time doing things you would normally do at home and you're actually working on writing. But no matter which option you choose, whether you choose to go away for a writing retreat, whether you choose to stay at home and do your home writing retreat, whatever you do, there are really 4 main things you want to make sure you focus on. And if you focus on these 4 things, your writing retreat will be successful. The first one is you want to have a clear goal. Whatever your writing goal is, it could be to so many chapters, it could be edit the book, it could be finish the book, right? It could just finish the book. It could be, I don't know, whatever it is. It could be a word count goal. It could be, I want to write for so many Pomodoros. Make sure you have a clear goal that you are working toward during your writing retreat that you want to achieve by the end of the retreat. The second one is to eliminate distractions. And that means your phone, because your phone will distract you. I actually bought an old school radio, like battery operated, yeah, old school radio with CD players, because I found that if I want to listen to music on my phone, I will suddenly be scrolling TikTok. So I have learned to eliminate the phone. The third one is reward yourself, because this is supposed to be fun. You're not punishing yourself by locking yourself in a hotel room for a weekend and writing. So take a break, go walk the bookstore and buy yourself a new book. Get a hotel room on the beach so that your reward can be walking the beach at night. Go swimming in the hotel pool. Go out for a nice dinner. Whatever that looks like, have some kind of reward or something fun planned into the day so that you're not like, oh my gosh, I'm locking myself in writing all day. It's supposed to be fun. So find something to make it fun. And last but not least is document the journey. Make sure you keep track of what you did well, what you didn't do well, what would you change next time, so that the next time you do a writing retreat, you can change it up, make it more fun, and you can look back and be like, wow, I can't believe I got that much stuff done on my writing retreat. So it makes it more worthwhile and more rewarding when you see the progress you have made when it is all over. So there you go. There are a couple of budget-friendly ways that you can do a writing retreat on your own time without having to spend thousands of dollars to do the fancy one. Although we all wish we could afford the fancy one. I 100% agree. Have you ever done a writing retreat? Whether one of the big fancy ones or your own version that you created yourself, I'd love to hear about it. Leave me a comment, tell me all about it. If you like this episode, be sure to comment, share, like, subscribe, all the things. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.